And we are recording. Hello everybody, and welcome back to the very long overdue second PaleoMedia review. Last time we looked at the hit Netflix original documentary known as The Dinosaurs, which has been accredited as one of the best paleodocs of the past decade. However, there's another paleodoc out there that is also in the running for the best paleodoc from the 2020s. So I thought that I'd sit down, give it a watch, or I guess a rewatch rather, and see what I thought of it. Ladies and gentlemen and everyone in between, please silence all cell phones and grab your popcorn, because today we will be discussing and reviewing the first season of AppleTV's Prehistoric Planet. Alright, I hope we like the set for this. I figured we'd need something a little different for the series, other than the, in front of my shelves. Anyways, we start off the season with an episode titled Coasts. Appropriately, that episode opens at the site of the southern coast of the Western Interior Seaway. Swimming in this massive water body is a large male Tyrannosaurus Rex and his kin. They are swimming through a shallower part of the seaway to reach an island. However, danger lurks in these waters, taking the form of a giant mosasaur. It is a race for the Rexes to get to shore, and unfortunately one of the babies gets left behind and dragged under. The rest of the family, however, make it, and they find what they were looking for. Papa Rex, as we'll call him, was attracted to this island by the smell of a dead Archelon, a prehistoric giant turtle. While he digs into this massive shelled meal, the baby Rexes go around the beach practicing their hunting skills on the newly hatched baby sea turtles. And then from here we are then taken into the ocean, and then we are taken to a shore connected to said ocean. This specific shore is home to a massive colony of pterosaurs, or flying reptiles, with numerous species able to be seen, such as the parenting Tethys-Draco or the stalking Phosphatidraco. On a distant isolated cliff, small Alcyone are hatching in the hundreds and climbing to the top of the cliff. Here, the newborn flaplings, which yes, that's what you call a baby pterosaur. I think it's so cute, baby pterosaurs are flaplings. They stretch their wings and take off for the forests of the mainland where they will be safe. It's a treacherous journey, however, as a hungry male Barbarodactylus stalks the skies and snatches up a lot of these flaplings. Only a few of these babies make it to the forest, but these few are now able to grow into adulthood with relative ease. Now we head back to the oceans, where a mother Tyrannosaurus, a type of elasmosaur, and her 6-month-old calf, they can be seen journeying to the bottom of a waterfall near the coast. Dozens of these elasmosaurs can be seen. Males are here to show off to potential female mates. Our mother Tyrannosaurus goes off to find a male to mate with, while the calf tries for the first time to swallow pebbles that were made round and smooth by the forces of the waterfall above. Now, why are they swallowing rocks? Now, it's explained in the show that they swallow these rocks to act as sort of gastrulus to crush up the food in their gut. Also, it helps these animals not go buoyant and float in the water. Once the calf finally succeeds, he and his well-mated mother swim back to the sea. Speaking of the sea, we come to where the Atlantic Ocean and the Pacific Ocean collide. Here is the home of a massive coral reef, which is also the home of thousands of fish. And this is also the spot where a large male mosasaurus has come for a dentist and spa appointment, courtesy of some pycnodont fish. Now, I believe these pycnodont fish are based off of Scalacuric, however you say that, but I'm also not really sure, so don't take my word on that. However, this big lizard is rudely interrupted by a very mean younger male. Our old-timer manages to catch a breath before dragging the young rival down to the bottom of the sea to try and drown him. Our old man is victorious, and now he sports a fancy red mating skin. Now, night falls, and we see a bunch of ammonites, specifically an indeterminate species of Scaphytid. And they are all glowing a bright blue color. They're glowing in order to impress their mates. Once they mate, the females go to lay the eggs, and by morning, all of the ammonites just die. Cephalopods tend to die after mating, but seeing the thousands upon thousands of dead shells is really sad in my opinion. The episode ends off once again in the ocean. I know only like 2 sequences have actually been at a coast, and the rest have been in the ocean, but don't worry, that seems to be a running theme with this series. In this part of the ocean, we see a family pod of Tyrannosaurus, including the mother and calf from earlier. The calf is now 2 years old, and the mama is swimming a lot slower than usual. A nearby predator, known as Kaikaifalu, which is an awesome name, notices and attempts to chase the female. The rest of the pod are able to scare the mosasaur off, and this gives the mother enough time to give live birth to a brand new Tyrannosaurus calf. We end the episode with this new baby calf taking its very first breath. And from here we move on to episode 2, the only one that's really well themed at all, and it's titled deserts. We open the episode in the vast desert of Cretaceous South America, and we see an incoming herd of giants. These are male Dreadnoughtus, all coming here to fight for the chance to mate with the even larger gathering of females, showing off their weird air sac neck balloons. An old bull has already claimed his spot among the gathering, and he is massive. However, a younger male comes up to challenge his rule, leading to a clash of titans. In the words of Sarazawa,
let them fight.
They fight, standing on their hind legs, which we now know they probably couldn't do, but that study came out after this, so whatever. Dreadnoughtus, on the other hand, also has the most amount of stress. In fact, the femoral muscles of Dreadnoughtus went through so much stress that it broke the scale of the finite element analysis. So unlike what Prehistoric Planet showed, Dreadnoughtus likely was not very capable of going into this position without, shattering its femur muscles. Clawing at each other, raking each other's necks with their teeth, and using their necks as sort of like whips like modern day giraffes do. In the end, the younger male ends up the victor, toppling over the old bull. The Dreadnoughtus eventually all leave this field, with the losers of the clashes left to die. Now, we're gonna hop on a flight from the wastes of South America to the wastes of Asia. Let's go! Here in the deserts of Mongolia, a lizard is running around in search of food. He spots a carcass of a sauropod. Nobody's at that carcass though, except the pterosaurs circling overhead, who don't dare come down. Why? A sleepy pack of Tarbosaurus, that's why. As they sleep, flies are being attracted to the giant theropods, which is a good opportunity for a sneaky lizard. But while the lizards hunt, they're also being hunted by velociraptors. One raptor makes a wrong step while chasing a lizard though, bumping into one of the tyrannosaurs and waking up the entire pack. The raptors run for their lives. The Tarbosaurs all get up and leave, and the pterosaurs come down to scavenge on the sauropod carcass. But in the end, sadly, the lizard never got a fly. For the next sequence, we are going to stay in Mongolia as a little female Mononychus listens around for food. She ends up hearing some rustling in a dead log and breaks into it using her namesake claw. Inside the dead log is a colony of termites, which she grabs using her long woodpecker-like tongue. Though these termites are a very good protein source and food source for the little Mononychus, they're also very annoying and very itchy. But then, for maybe the first time in this little Mononychus' life, the Mongolian desert receives a storm. And with the storm comes rain. With a new abundance of water, flowers and plants pop up everywhere. It's now a super loud and confusing world for a small Mononychus. This onslaught of rain has also made a massive watering hole, which attracts hundreds of dinosaurs. These include the Hadrosaur Barsboldia, the giant theropods Therizinosaurus and Tarbosaurus, more of the little Mononychus, and even the massive sauropods simply known as Mongolian titans. Once the water is all drank up, everyone leaves back into the desert. Alright, now we're gonna hop on the plane again as we travel to North Africa, where on top of a steep plateau, a massive sex party is taking place for a pterosaur known as Barbaridactylus. The males of this species have a giant head crest, which they use to try and woo all of the thousands of females. They also don't like other males, often leading to them running the block and ending up dead. Some males are sneaky though, and they look like females in order to try and Mission Impossible their way into getting laid. What a way to describe it. One of these sneaks attempts to dance with a female, but a male spots this imposter. However, the larger male thinks that the imposter is just another female, and he attempts to perform his mating display. In a case of doomed yaoi, the sneak male rejects the large male's advances and goes off to mate with another female. Finally, we hop on another flight to the gypsum fields of South America. Here, a herd of hadrosaurs called Cicernosaurus has not eaten in a very long time, and many of the herd, especially the younger animals, are starving to near death. However, the older of the bunch are able to lead the herd to the lush coasts where food is abundant by following both the rumbling sounds of the waves as well as by following the stars. And with their success, the episode comes to a close. Now get ready to get wet, because we're moving on to episode 3, Fresh Water. Has been delivered with a hood. Okay, you might not believe this, but as I was recording this video, I get a package. And I know what this is, so we're gonna open it together. Yo! Look at the little guy. It's a little Microraptor. To be fair, it could be any raptor, but it's meant to be Microraptor. Does it throw off the balance of the entire set? Yes. Do I really care? Not really. Hold up, I guess I do. You go over here. Okay, cool. Anyways, fresh water. We opened on a canyon in Mongolia with a river flowing through the middle. This river is likely what created the canyon, in fact. At the end of the canyon is a massive cliff with a spectacular cascading waterfall. Thousands of unnamed pterosaurs have clung to the outcroppings on the cliff face in order to roost. This provides a perfect opportunity for a trio of velociraptors who stalk up on the pterosaurs with climbing skills similar to those of modern snow leopards. The female raptor is able to drop down on a pterosaur, but this puts the flock into a frenzy. In the chaos, the captured prey falls off the cliff. The female raptor bravely decides to follow this prize to the bottom, landing successfully and taking the meal for herself. She leaves the other two raptors, both males, to fend for themselves in the fray. Now, we see a lot of rain falling in North America, which brings a lot of rivers. Along the side of one of these rivers, we see a large male Tyrannosaurus rex enjoying the meal of a dead Triceratops that he brought down himself. He's been through a lot in his life, his body covered in scars, missing the tip of his tail, and having some fresh wounds from his recent battle with the Triceratops. This new cut could get infected, however, so he hops in the river water to clean himself off. While in the water, another rex approaches, a female. Instead of fighting, he shows off his neck in an attempt to mate instead. This somehow works and they go to mate. Alrighty, now it's time to yet again head back to Mongolia, as the wet season has made a bit of a marsh. Here, a massive Dinosaurs is foraging for underwater plants. He is, however, covered in flies, which bite his skin and drink his blood. They itch a lot and he scratches on a dead tree. And then he releases
one big pile of shit.
Alright, now it's time to head down to South Africa, which has flooded and made a series of forested islands. Here we see a Quetzalcoatlus outside of North America? Well, in the last paleodoc we watched, we saw the African Asdargid Ehrenbergiana in North America. So I guess it's fair we see a North American pterosaur in South Africa now? I guess. This female lands on one of the islands to lay eggs and protect her nest, laying 2 eggs every few days until she has a dozen or so. After laying them all, she needs to leave to eat. She has used up a lot of energy from laying all these eggs. While gone, an older female intrudes on this nest and eats the original eggs in order to lay those of her own. Before the old woman can eat all the eggs, the original mama cat swoops in and scares her off. But not before only 3 of her eggs remain. Alright, we're staying in Africa, but now we're in what's known as Madagascar, and crabs are emerging out of the beach sands. These crabs are a good food source for a female Machikosaurus, a noasaur with a uniquely curved down jaw. The littler crabs also act as a good hunting practice for her 3 little babies. One rather adventurous little baby strays a bit too far away though, as he gets eaten by a giant frog, Beelzebufo. Finally, we're in a swamp in South America, which has gone to high tide and is mixing with the nearby ocean. In these brackish waters, a group of badly rendered elasmosaurs hunt a school of fish. And that's where the episode ends. And now on to the next episode, I need to grab a winter coat, because we're going to travel to the ice worlds. Alright, now I realized I didn't have a winter coat while recording this, so a blanket will have to do. In episode 4, we start off in the Prince Creek Formation of Alaska, just at the end of a long, dark winter. It's really cold right now. We watch a Dromaeosaurus wake up, eat a bug, then go with their pack to stalk a passing by herd of Edmontosaurus. These hadrosaurs are coming through on their yearly route to find food, but they come to a standstill when they reach a river. While the leaders of the herd find a safe spot to pass over, the members of the back of the herd spot the small raptors, inciting a panic to cross the river quickly. Within the chaos, some of the baby Edmontosaurus fall into the rapidly moving stream. One of the babies is barely able to escape and the herd moves on. Another baby, however, fell victim to the current, now becoming a meal for the small raptors. After this, a bit downstream, a bunch of male ornithomimus sit on an isolated island, making nests to impress females, stealing material from one another in a non-stop cycle. Alright, now I'm going to take this blanket off because despite being in an episode called The Ice World, we're going to a volcanic field at the start of spring. We see a herd of Allura Titan come to build nests and lay eggs in the warm, incubating volcanic sands. A couple weeks later, the eggs hatch and the parents watch over the newborn hadrosaurs. This area is abundant in fast-growing and nutrition-packed horsetails. However, another group of babies is growing up in the same field, mosquitoes. Once grown up, these insects swarm the dinosaurs by the thousands, draining a lot of blood, especially from the babies. and this means that the herd is unable to stay put. The herd leaves, letting go of any baby that is unable to keep up, leaving them behind to die. Now, I'm still keeping my blanket off as we go to North America, I think again in the Prince Creek Formation, I'm pretty sure. And here we see storms going crazy, which starts a forest fire. One animal that they call a troodontid, but for simplistic sakes we'll just call a troodon, uses the fire as an opportunity to hunt critters trying to escape. Being the highly intelligent animal that she is, she even starts more fires, which is wild to think about potentially having happened. She ends up catching some sort of mammal. I'm not quite sure what these mammals are, but I'm fairly certain it's Simolodon. Now, I'm gonna need to put my sleeves down as we travel to the late fall of Antarctica. Here, a trio of Antarctopelta brothers struggle to fit into a small cave to sleep for the winter. One of the brothers has to go off and find his own cave. He travels a bunch, passes by a herd of indeterminate hadrosaurs, and finally finds a cave filled with glowy fungi gnats. Finally, I'll need that blanket again, because we are again traveling to the Prince Creek Formation. Now at the start of winter, and it's very cold yet again. But the large ceratopsian Pachyrhinosaurus stays here to tough out the dark season. Some of the younger males roughhouse a bit, but they're kept in line by a large old bull. But this herd is being stalked by the Arctic's largest predator, Nanuqsaurus. A small pack of these tyrannosaurs chase the herd into a wider opening, where the herbivores form a defensive circle, with the juveniles at the center. As a blizzard picks up, the two are at a brief standstill, but once the storm leaves, it's back to high tension. Eventually, one of the Pachyrhinosaurus chickens out and runs, causing the rest of the herd to follow. One Pachy falls behind, the old bull. He is unable to fight off the Nanuqsaurus pack and ends up becoming a meal for these tyrannosaurs. This is where the episode ends, and we are on to the 5th and final episode of Season 1, titled Forests. Alright, believe it or not, we start out the episode in a forest. A tree is knocked down by a giant sauropod called Austroboscidon, and that's about all these guys do. So moving on, we are now seeing a herd of Triceratops, and you guessed it, a forest. There's a baby with them, but this baby can't eat the plant because it will get sick due to the plant's defensive toxins. The herd must move through this cave in order to reach a clay lick. The clay will line the animal's stomachs, and this lining will weaken the effects of the plant's toxins. The cave is very dark and claustrophobic though, causing the little calf to get lost. Eventually he does find his way back to his mama and to the clay lick, and eats as much of the sediment as he can. Now we're gonna travel back on down to South America. Here in Patagonia, the forest canopy covers nearly every square foot, except for one mysterious clearing. This clearing was made by a male Carnotaurus, who cleared it all out as a stage to show off his dancing skills to a female who he calls over. When she arrives, he must impress her somehow. So, he shows off his best moves in perhaps the most famous scene from this entire show. He wiggles his tail, he does a little spin, and then pop! Raises his little pathetic blue arms and twirls them around. Despite his valiant efforts, she's not impressed. She leaves and he goes back to cleaning up. Don't worry, buddy, you're still my favorite at least. Hang in there, bud. And now we're off to go to Asia. The ginkgo trees here are dropping a lot of nuts, and these large oviraptorids love eating said nuts. Now we're just gonna say oviraptorids since in the show they're called Corythoraptor, but this genus as of recent is a little dubious, being referred to the genus Bamji in 2024, and more recently being referred to Huananosaurus in 2026. This flock of very blue dinosaurs is being stalked by a female Changosaurus, who fails her first attack. Once a storm comes in, the wind blows a little harder, and she succeeds on her second try. Then in North America, we see another forest fire. In the aftermath, beetles pop up first. Then an Atrociraptor shows up, eats the beetles, and uses smoke to get bugs out of his wings. Then a large ankylosaur called Anodontosaurus eats some charcoal, and a mother of two Admontosaurus leaves. And then we come to, yet again, Mongolia, while 3 small baby Therizinosaurus stumble around in search for food. They find some drippy honey under a low beehive. They try to climb up to it, but lo and behold, they aren't great at climbing. Once one of these babies finally makes it to the hive, they are pelted all over by a swarm of angry bee stings. The stings hurt and hurt and hurt until the bees pay their attention to an incoming adult Theri, who knocks the hive down in one claw swing, allowing the babies to eat the scraps. For the final sequence of the season, we're gonna go to Europe for I think the first time in the entire series. Here, animals prefer to remain hidden, such as the hadrosaur Telmatosaurus. Small Zalmoxes are trying to cross a log while staying hidden, but one gets snatched up by a Hatzegopteryx. This pterosaur then goes to the beach and spreads its wings, takes off, and the season comes to a close. Now, I just provided a commentary that was 10 times worse than Sir David Attenborough's throughout this entire show, because his is perfect. But now that we know what happened in each of the episodes throughout this entire series, we are able to move on to my actual thoughts of the first season and figure out my rating. Alright, firstly we have to talk about all the things I've loved from this season. Now, if you didn't know, because why would you know, I am a videographer outside of this channel when it comes to my actual real life job. So I'm not just looking at this show from a paleo perspective, but I'm also looking at it from a filmmaking perspective. And from that latter point of view, this series is phenomenal. The visual effects done by Moving Picture Company is beautiful 99% of the time. The CGI work of each animal looks so real that it's hard to imagine them not just being in a camera. Well, I should say almost every animal. We'll talk about that later. This is also helped by the fact that the designs of all the animals are so good, both faithful to the fossil record we have, as well as having some speculative flair. And the only issues I could have with really any of these designs would be just little nitpicks here and there. The animals with the absolute best designs from this first season, in my opinion, are the following: Barbaridactylus, Caecaephalou, Tarbosaurus, Mononychus, Cicernosaurus, Dinocyrus, Beelzebufo, Aloratitan, Troodon, Pachyrhinosaurus, Carnotaurus, and Changosaurus. Let's give a round of applause to these amazing designs. Just wow, such amazing players in this entire series. These designs not only looked good, but sounded amazing. Having worked with Foley and sound design and all that, I know that every single sound in a piece of media is intentional. And the sound design of this show is incredible. From something as simple as a twig snapping to something as gargantuan as a titanosaur snoring, everything sounded perfect. And everything is all aided by the score written by Anza Rosman, hopefully I said their name right, and Karatalov, in addition to the main theme by Andrew James Christie and the GOAT of GOATs, Hans Zimmer, both of which give the entire show a sense of both mystique as well as grandiose. All of this amazing visual effects and sound effects and design work of course aids in showing us some very unique behaviors with the show's cast of dinosaurs, as well as other critters. Some of my favorite behaviors shown off include the Tyrannosaurus swallowing the rocks, or the young Therizinosaurus attempting to climb to reach the beehive, and the Cicernosaurus using the stars as a map. All of this, while sometimes not directly supported by fossil evidence, is all fairly plausible when comparing with modern animals. And now I have to say which segment from each episode was my favorite, so keep your applause to the end. In episode 1, the winner would have to be the sequence of the Papa Rex and his babies. This sequence is a great introduction to the series as a whole, and overall is really great. In episode 2, I think I'm gonna give it to the Mononychus segment. The Mononychus acted very realistic, like a mix between modern owls and aardvarks. And for me, it just works really well. Plus, the Mononychus is really adorable. For episode 3, the only scene I really loved was the Dinocyrus scene. Don't get me wrong, the rest were still good, but overall this episode didn't really blow me away like the next one did. For episode 4, I pretty much loved the entire episode. But my favorite sequence has got to be the Nanuqsaurus vs. Pachyrhinosaurus standoff. It's just so well done in my opinion, and I love seeing dinosaurs in the snow. For episode 5, again, I wasn't blown away by much, but I do adore the Carnotaurus dance sequence. It's just iconic. But the best segment throughout the entire season overall, I think, is still the Nanuqsaurus vs. Pachyrhinosaurus. When I imagine Prehistoric Planet, this is the sequence I am thinking of. Now, with everything good, there are often things not so good. Just a few little gripes or problems that I had here or there while on my rewatch of the series. Are some of them a bit nitpicky? Yes, absolutely. But I'm still gonna voice my opinion anyways because content. Firstly, sequences rarely match to the theme of the episode. Despite loving Ice Worlds, I do have to admit that most of it takes place during the summer and not in the winter. For example, we spend a whole segment in a volcanic field. I even had to take off my blanket. Or maybe in the first episode, Coasts, where we spend most of our time not on the coast, but rather in the ocean itself. Is that really that big of an issue for me? No, not at all. But I thought I'd mention it at least because I find it a little funny, and also I think in the next season, it gets egregiously more noticeable. Alright, next. Remember when I said almost all the animal VFX and CGI looked picture perfect? Well, there's one animal that didn't look that great. Why the hell did the Elasmosaurs in episode 3 have like PS2 level graphics? Even the Tyrannosaurus, when showing up in episode 1, they had a weird look to them sometimes, as if they were maybe composited wrong. But especially in the episode, at the end of the episode Freshwater, when they're hunting with fish in the brackish water, they really look just like not great. Now maybe it's to make them look wet and smooth, but in my opinion it just looks a little flat. Now I know next to nothing about CGI, so I'm not dissing the work of the artists, but these shots maybe could have been used a bit longer in the oven maybe, I don't know. The other 99% of the shots however look phenomenal. And finally I have a few gripes with one of the things I actually praised earlier, the behaviors. While some sequences explicitly refer to the fossil record when it comes to the behavior, such as how hadrosaurs use parental nesting or how the Tyrannosaurus swallowed the stones, a lot of it is also very speculative and hypothetical. Plausible, yes, but directly confirmed, no. And while that's generally not a bad thing, I wish that it stated that a lot of the behavior shown is actually speculative, and more importantly show where it isn't so much. So the average Joe watching the show doesn't think that we're just making everything up. Which is a sentiment I saw from a lot of people after the Dinosaurs came out. Also on behaviors, while all of them were super realistic, they were also really repetitive at times. What's this pterosaur doing? Oh, it's nesting, or it's roosting, or it's mating. What's the dinosaur doing? Oh, it's looking for food, or it's hunting, or it's mating. It's the same like 3 things no matter what sequence you're in. I kinda just wish we had a bit more variety when it comes to what the animals are actually doing within its sequences. Like, I would love to have seen a sequence of just a couple babies playing for 3 minutes straight, making the behavior a bit more unique rather than having to watch the 13th theropod hunt to herbivore scene or the 9th mating ritual scene. And since we're on my least favorites of the season, we have to mention my least favorite segments of the whole series. Again, they're not necessarily bad, and if you like them, that's not a problem, you can like whatever you want. But they just didn't entertain me near as much as the other ones did. The sequences that did the worst, in my opinion, were the Elasmosaurs in episode 3, the Ostracoposeidon at the start of episode 5, and the entire Europe sequence at the end of the series. As for the Elasmosaurs, it was just a really anticlimactic and visually unimpressive way to end off an episode. The Ostracoposeidon was on screen for literally 30 seconds max, I feel, and you could have done a lot more with them. And the Europe segment was just such a boring and again anticlimactic way to end the series as a whole. Like, it's weird, we start off so strong with the Papa Rexes and the babies, and it ends just like that. It just leaves you wanting more, and then there isn't more until season 2. But we're saving that for another day. Overall, do these segments or nitpicks affect my enjoyment of the show? Not really, however, they are again things to consider in this honest review. But now we come to my final ratings. First, I will do each of the episodes. Episode 1, titled Coasts, in my opinion, gets an 8 out of 10. The second episode, Deserts, gets a 9 out of 10. Episode 3, Freshwater, gets a 7.8 out of 10. Episode 4, Ice Worlds, is my favorite in the series with a 9.5 out of 10. And then we end off on episode 5, titled Forests, with a 7.5 out of 10. And with each episode now having its rating, that means that the entire show, in my entirely subjective opinion, has an average rating of just about 8.4 out of 10. I never thought I'd say this, but I enjoyed the Dinosaurs slightly more than Prehistoric Planet Season 1. However, this show has 2 more seasons for me to tackle. Will they be able to stand up to the Netflix phenomenon? Only time will tell. And with that out of the way, I hope you enjoyed this review. Let me know down below what I should cover next with this series. Spoiler warning, I already know the next episode. It has to do with a big monkey. If you did enjoy the video, please leave a like to tell me to make more and push it into the algorithm. If you want to check out some more maybe educational content in the world of paleontology, then feel free to check out my page where I post not regularly whatsoever. If you want to get to know me for some weird reason, feel free to check out my socials or join the Discord, all links in the description below. And finally, if you like paleontology and dinosaurs, feel free to subscribe for more. I'll see you next time. Bye.
She's been sleeping there this entire time. Look at her go. Finally waking up. Look at me. Oh, big yawn. Oh my goodness. Alright, now we can go to the end card. Bye.